Hello and welcome to day 37 of our 2790 series, and we're going to be reading today in Acts 16 through 18, and it's almost like we're on a sprint now, rushing from city to city, it seems, with Paul as he starts a church, and then another one, and then another one, and then another one, and it seems like everywhere that he goes, he preaches the gospel, receives some persecution, and the church thrives. It's an astounding story. And so we're going to meet some of Paul's companions, Timothy and Silas. We're going to meet Priscilla and Aquila, great leaders of the church. And we're going to see the start of the church is in Thessalonica, in Athens, in Corinth, in Philippi, and in Ephesus. And the church in Philippi is kind of interesting for me. Philippians is one of my favorite letters. And it's important to understand that the first real strong convert that Paul had in Philippi was Lydia, a wealthy woman, and she opens her home, and the church meets in her home, and she's clearly a leader in the early church. And that's truth that we need to come to grips with, is that women can be strong leaders for the gospel of our Lord Jesus Christ. And Priscilla receives the letters, and she's the encouragement for the people, and she finances the church and also gives some of her funding away to finance the beginning of other churches. Tremendous woman of God. And then we see this moving and telling story of the start of the church in Ephesus, where Paul preaches the gospel, and then there's this burning of idols, and the silversmiths get together and they have a riot, and Paul hides in the theater, and they try to sneak him out at night, and this is just a chaos. I started a church, and I can't imagine starting a church with people standing outside the theater where you're trying to start the church, and they're like, burn down the theater to get at you. But that's what happens. Paul is just this faithful soul. What interests me is when we read the letters to Timothy, we'll see that Paul appoints Timothy to become the pastor of this church, and I can't imagine a harder appointment than going into a city that started because you created a riot to begin with, and the silversmiths, the richest people in town, are against you. And so Timothy had his hands full as he became the pastor of this church. And so there's some great moving stories. It's almost like watching a movie, but it's a really fast movie as Paul goes from town to town and city to city, preaching the gospel and starting new churches.